We have seen so far two systems of analyses. Lead sheet symbols, base position symbols, also known as figured base, and now it's time to learn the last of these, which is Roman numerals. All three of these tell you different things. We've already learned about these two. Lead sheet symbols tell you root, quality, and inversion. Base position symbols tell you intervals above the base and if any notes are outside of the key signature. Roman numerals are extremely relevant and necessary when analyzing tonal music. Base position symbols and lead sheet symbols leave some very important information out. For example, they leave out function altogether. Tonal music is all about functional harmony. What function is this note or this chord performing at this specific moment? Roman numerals help with this. So let's do just a very quick crash course in Roman numerals if you haven't learned this. If you have, then you can skip forward through this minute or two that I talk about this. If you haven't, then here you go. Roman numerals are a different way of indicating numbers, and we use them in a slightly different way than they're usually used. A lot of the time when you get to the end of a movie, you'll see the year that it was made in Roman numerals, like XXXVII, whatever, LCM, all these different letters, and these letters are referring to numbers. Uppercase letter I is 1 in Roman numerals. To make this into a 2, I just put another pillar in there, and now it's 2. To make it 3, put another one. Once we put 3, it starts to get a little bit difficult to distinguish the pillars, so we don't add another one for 4. Let me put 2 over here, and 1. 4 is actually an I and a V. Every one of these, you notice, has these lines on the top and the bottom. We'll discuss that in a second. To make more sense out of this, I need to go forward to 5. 5 is the letter V in Roman numerals. 4 is like 5 minus 1. That's why the 1 is in front of the 5. So that's actually referring to 5. 6 is like 5 plus 1. And 7 is like 5 plus 2. And you know what? We don't have to worry about any others because these are the only Roman numerals that we have to worry about in music. So we deal with 1 through 7 in the Roman numerals, but we also deal with case. These are all uppercase. If I convert them into lowercase, it'll look like this. When they're in uppercase, there's always the bars on the top and the bottom. Both the top and the bottom, don't forget those. That's what makes them uppercase. In lowercase, you don't have any bars, and you have dots above the eyes. The reason that we create a lowercase version of Roman numerals is that the case indicates the quality. Okay, so now you know how to do Roman numerals. Let's figure out how they are used when analyzing music. Roman numerals, like I said, refer to function, but even more specifically, they refer to the scale degree of the root. I'll come back to that. They also refer to the triad quality. That's even with 7th chords. It's referring to the triad portion of the 7th chord quality. So we have scale degree of the root and the triad quality, and that's it. That's all that it tells us, but that is a lot of information. So scale degree. What member of the scale? That means that Roman numerals refer to the key when the other two systems of analysis did not. That definitely distinguishes Roman numerals from the rest. Okay, so with Roman numerals, you need to know what key you're in. If you don't know what key you're in, they don't mean anything. So let's put this in G major. A G major chord in G major has G as its root, which is the first scale degree. We use that little caret sign to show scale degrees. That's the first scale degree, this is the third scale degree, that's the fifth scale degree, G, B, and D. But G is the root. The Roman numeral refers to the scale degree of the root. So this is a Roman numeral 1. It's an uppercase Roman numeral 1 because it's major. This little guy tells you a lot of information. He's telling you that it's a chord, a major chord, triad actually, built from the first scale degree. However, we, just like I said, need to know what key this is in. So at the beginning of Roman numeral analysis, you indicate the key and then put a colon afterwards. You don't have to put an M for major, but you do have to put an M for minor. So G major, that's a G major chord. Roman numeral 1, uppercase. I'm going to keep everything the same except for the key. And I'm going to convert this into E minor, which is the relative minor of G major, but I'm going to keep that chord the same. So E minor. Some people will abbreviate E minor like this, put a little lowercase e. That's fine, as long as it's very obvious that that's a lowercase e. There's no way to mistake that for an uppercase. What I like to do to leave all questions out is to put a little m for minor. That way I could even write an uppercase and it still means minor. It's my little thing that I like to do with my minors. E minor, this is a G major chord. G is the third scale degree in E minor. So this is going to be a Roman numeral 3. It's going to be an uppercase Roman numeral 3 because it's a major triad. So an uppercase Roman numeral 3. Remember that it's referring to the quality by being upper or lowercase, and it's also referring to the scale degree of the root. Okay, now let's say that in E minor we run across this chord, a D sharp diminished chord, which is actually a pretty common chord in E minor, believe it or not. You'll learn that pretty soon. This chord is a diminished triad. Now, uppercase indicates major, lowercase indicates minor. How do you indicate diminished? Well, you start with a lowercase number, and then you put the degree sign indicating diminished. Okay. Now, what if it's a seventh chord? If I put that C there, and now all of a sudden this is a diminished seventh chord. Now we have to add another type of analysis because there's no way to indicate that seventh using Roman numerals. We can indicate the seventh using a combination of Roman numeral analysis and base position symbols. And it's this combination of Roman numerals and base position symbols that we will use for the majority of tonal music theory. This chord has a Roman numeral of 7 and it's diminished, and because it's a seventh chord we add the base position symbol 7. Let's try an inverted chord. Let's change the key. B flat major. You only have to indicate this once, by the way, unless the key changes. So once you put the key here, it maintains all the way through. You do have to put this, though. You may think, well, of course, I'm going to know that it's in B flat. But you do have to write this. You do have to write the key. So B flat major. And I'm going to put, let's see, write this chord. this chord, if we went through all the work and built our snowman and made this at the root position, we'd figure out that this is the root. A is the root of this chord. We have a C and we have an E. So this is the root. This is scale degree 7. So we're going to have a Roman numeral 7. The quality would be A, C, E flat. That's a diminished triad. So it's diminished right there. That's how we indicate diminished. It's also not in root position. So we have to add a base position symbol to indicate that it's not in root position. Remember your base position hotline. First number of the area code was 6 because that's how you indicate a first inversion triad, which this is. So this is a first inversion triad, which happens to be built off of the 7th scale degree. Okay, a couple of things before I go into the names of the functions here. What if we ran across a chord which happened to be augmented? Like this. We won't see this very often, but we'll run across it from time to time. We won't really study this chord until the 4th semester, but or actually, yeah, before the 3rd semester actually, but it's towards the end that we learn this. This chord is built off of the 5th scale degree. This is the root, which is F. That's the 5th scale degree, so that means the Roman numeral is going to be a 5. The quality, F-A-C sharp, spells an augmented triad. The way that we indicate augmented is we start with major and you put a plus sign for augmented. This is rare. Augmented triads are more rare than all of the other triads, the other 3. So that would be an augmented triad built off of the 5th scale degree. Okay, so now let's get into the function names. This is where it gets fun and you get to sound smart when you're talking to your friends. You will see some variety in these names when you look at different sources, but I'm going to tell you the most common function names. So there's 7 of them. Actually, there's more than 7, but we're going to start with 7. 7 most basic. I'll explain what I'm doing here after I write them all down. Okay, so these are Roman numerals 1 through 7. The reason that they are in different cases is that if you're in a major key, chords built off of different scale degrees will be in different qualities. The first scale degree will spell a major chord. Second will spell a minor chord. Third is minor. Fourth, major. Major, minor, diminished with the 7th scale degree, if you're in a major key. A chord built off of the first scale degree is called the tonic chord. And the tonic chord has a very important function. We will discuss what these functions are later, in a later video, but we'll learn the names for right now. Tonic. The 2nd scale degree spells a chord which is called the supertonic chord. Super meaning it starts above the tonic, being the 2nd scale degree. So supertonic just means above tonic. The 3rd scale degree is the basis for a mediant chord. The 4th scale degree is a subdominant chord. And you'll see in a second why it's called subdominant. It's because it's below the dominant chord. We've seen that term before. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Let me finish this out. Submediant is the chord that's built off of the 6th scale degree. It says submediant, but it's not below the median. There's a reason that these share similar names, and we'll learn more about that when we get into the specific functions. And the last one, in a major key, leading tone. The diminished triad built off of the 7th scale degree. All right, so this term, dominant, we've seen that before when referring to 7th chords, dominant 7th chords. And the reason that major, minor 7th chords are referred to as dominant 7th chords is because if you throw a 7th on this chord, it's going to be a dominant seventh. And it's actually going to be the only one that will have that quality in the major key. So dominant refers to both the quality of a seventh chord and a chord built from the fifth scale degree. There is one more quality to refer to, and let me make sure that you can see this. Hold on a second. I lost my screen. Okay. And it's this chord. This is called the subtonic, and it's major. This chord exists in a minor key. Or at least has a diatonic function in a minor key only. And that would be a chord built off of, for example, say you're in A minor, a chord built off of a G. G is the seventh scale degree in A minor, and GBD spells a major triad. That's a subtonic chord. It's not a leading tone chord. There's actually two different chords that can be built from the seventh scale degree in a minor key, and it has to do with the harmonic minor scale and the fact that that seventh scale degree is kind of on a hinge, that it can go up or it can stay in its original position. So there's these two. But the terms that you need to become familiar with as soon as possible are these seven: tonic, supertonic, mediant, subdominant, dominant, submediant, and leading tone. This is how we will refer to functions in this class. And I want you to avoid calling chords by their numbers. Like if you see this chord, that's not a 4 chord. That's a subdominant chord. And it's not just me being picky. There's a reason that I do this. Say, for example, we run across this chord, and somebody says, well, what about this 6 chord? 6 is not this chord. If you say a 6 chord, you're referring to a chord in first inversion, like that, the 6. This is a submediant chord. This is a submediant 6 chord, which would be that chord in first inversion. Okay, so a quick review. There's a lot of information that I went over in just a little amount of space here. Roman numerals refer to the scale degree of the root, the chord, and also the triad quality. And that's it. And we use the combination of Roman numerals and bass position symbols to do the majority of our analysis in tonal harmony.